Gerald McCoy has been the topic of so many conversations of many diehard NFL fan bases. Whether they're going to get him, whether they have a chance at signing him, whether the Bucs would release him, which they did. There has been so much talk this offseason after the major free agency period about one Gerald McCoy. Now we know that he is the apple of Odell's eye, but will he find his fit in Cleveland, or will he find a better fit on a different NFL team? Well, this week, that's what we're going to do. In a video that hopefully isn't dated by the time I upload it, we're going to look at Gerald McCoy's options and see where he just might go. Let's do it. Now, the first question you have to ask yourself is, who are the teams in contention? Well, the first team that everybody has talked about heavily in regards to Gerald McCoy, and especially on this channel, is, of course, the Cleveland Browns. Then you have Baltimore, who is also heavily linked. You also have Cincinnati, apparently, New England, and Jacksonville. So what I'm going to do is go through all of the major contenders and see what their chances are, what are the pros and cons for one Gerald McCoy, and gauge where he just might go in his free agency period. All right, so let's go through them, all right? So let's go through them, and let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals signing Gerald McCoy.
Boy, if you don't get...
All right, I know it seems like a long shot, but let's attempt to take this seriously. And the first thing I have for Gerald McCoy is that he will be joining a really solid defensive line with really solid veterans on the team. This is going to be a benefit to him on and off the field, as Geno Atkins is still very good at this stage of his career and will be great help to him on the defensive line. And it will also be helpful to him off the field because he'll have more dudes to hang out with when he's bored in Cincinnati, which, you know, you need that. Also, he can make much more money with the Cincinnati Bengals, as they would be willing to pay way more, knowing that they aren't necessarily considered a contender or a favorite for the division this year. Now they could, and also, you know, Cincinnati has a great little restaurant chain. Now they're all throughout Ohio, but they're the best in Cincinnati. That place is called Skyline Chili. Now they're not a sponsor to this channel, but they have some pretty damn good chili, you know. Gerald McCoy seems like he might like some good chili. And also, Gerald McCoy from Oklahoma. Cincinnati, kind of like Oklahoma. So, you know, that might work out for Gerald McCoy. Now, what doesn't work about this arrangement is, well, Cincinnati, of course, is not considered a contender. He would essentially be going to the AFC version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he will be going to a team with a ton of question marks, not only at the quarterback position, but on the offensive line. And he would be going to a team that's aging, has a lot of question marks, doesn't have youth in the right spots, does not look like they can contend with the powerhouses of the division in Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and it doesn't seem like they have enough to compete with the emerging team in Cleveland that has added a lot of talent while they have signed Bobby Hart. All in all, if he wants to be on a contending team, if he wants to win and have a chance at playing in the playoffs and especially winning a playoff game, it just doesn't seem like Cincinnati would be a great choice for Gerald McCoy. Now, the second team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this again would be a nice addition to a already really good defense. And they're a proven defense. I mean, this defense, when they had solid quarterback play with Blake Bortles, that one year he did it, they played very well. They were able to keep the defense off the field enough to where they can rest, and that defense was able to dominate. You'll have a really good defense. Again, similar to Cincinnati, more vet field, more of his peers there, more chance of him to relate to people his age. I know that's silly, I brought that up twice, but, you know, once you get older, I think that is something that does become important to a veteran player along with winning. And also, Jacksonville will probably be willing to pay just a little bit more than the other teams because they know they aren't really in that contender zone because they have a question mark at quarterback. And that's when we're going to start our first negative, is that they start Nick Foles at quarterback. And while Nick Foles has done great in his career, he has also done really bad in his career. So at best case, you don't know what you're getting with Nick Foles. So that is not a great situation for somebody who wants to be on a contender. But another positive for Gerald McCoy is that, hey, Jacksonville is a nice, easy move from Tampa Bay. I mean, you don't even got to go into state lines. You don't got to change your driver's license. You don't got to get new plates for your car. you just park wherever, man. That's a positive. That's a quality of life thing for Gerald McCoy. I'm not just going to look at the football side of things. We're going to talk about his quality of life because Gerald McCoy is a person. But that's it for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't really see them being the spot for Gerald McCoy, and I don't think that Gerald McCoy is going to land there. So throw that in the trash pile with Cincinnati. Boom. All right, now we're going to get to our heavy hitters, our real contenders to get Gerald McCoy. And the one contender that I think is the most interesting is, of course, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this team checks all the bases. They're a contender. They can make the playoffs very easily. They have a good defense, and they're in need of veteran leadership. Also, they're going to be a run-focused offense, which means there's more of a guarantee that they're going to keep the defense off the field, which means that it's going to be easier for Gerald McCoy to do his thing. And Gerald McCoy would be able to shine in Baltimore a little bit more than I think he would in the other two top contending places, as he'll have more of a role carved out for him already. And the other thing you can't not consider when you're talking about a veteran signing with the Baltimore Ravens is that Jim Harbaugh has had this knack of signing guys on both sides of the ball at the end of their career, and being able to push 2 or 3 more years out of them. I just think of guys like Elvis Dumervil and guys like Steve Smith and Eric Weddle that he was able to do that with. And Gerald McCoy can easily be added to that list of guys, as I think Baltimore has a really good structure for veteran players. Now, as far as the negatives for Baltimore, it's the question mark at quarterback. Not saying that Lamar Jackson is a bust or is unsure or is necessarily a bad quarterback, but, and I'll say it again, and I'm not trying to hate on Lamar Jackson, but Baltimore fans, they invade the comment section. They definitely think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to hate on Lamar Jackson. But I think when your quarterback's biggest issue is if he can throw the ball well, that's a question mark at quarterback until he proves that otherwise. And that's Lamar Jackson's biggest question of the offseason. Is he going to allow the Baltimore Ravens to have a more diverse offense because he improved in the passing game? Is he going to become a passer that can hurt you along with his leg? Not necessarily saying he has to be Tom Brady back there or he has to be a pocket master, but he does have to be a lot more effective in the pocket than he was last year because he's just going to play more games. He's going to be overexposed, and teams are going to be able to game plan against that more effectively now that they've seen something that works against it. But if Gerald McCoy is looking for guarantees when it comes to playoff contention, although Baltimore is going to be a really good team, but if Gerald McCoy is looking for a contending team, I almost guarantee to be in the playoffs, I don't think Baltimore is necessarily the most consistent choice because this team has such a low floor and extremely high ceiling. If Lamar Jackson has a really good year number 2 and is able to put it together as a passer and as a runner, this team could be one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But if Lamar Jackson doesn't, if the league catches up to what he does, then that can end up for what is a miserable ride in Baltimore, as their offensive future kind of is dependent on Lamar Jackson, especially with them doubling down and drafting a wide receiver in the first round this year. So a lot hinges on Lamar Jackson. So however you feel about Lamar Jackson is going to determine how comfortable you feel with the Baltimore Ravens. I, myself, am not the most comfortable with Lamar Jackson, so I wouldn't be if I was Gerald McCoy, but I have no idea how Gerald McCoy feels about Lamar Jackson, and that is everything when it comes to considering the Baltimore Ravens as a Gerald McCoy landing spot. Now, the next team is the New England Patriots. Now, of course, they check all of the boxes. They're New England Patriots, okay? And there is no better guarantee to play in a playoff game than Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. There's no better guarantee on earth than that for Gerald McCoy. So he knows if he goes to New England, he will play in the playoffs. He will play in some important games. He will be on a contending team. That is just a guarantee. It's a fact of life. But the Patriots have a system that is very specific and grinds a lot out of the players in it. And I only bring that up because while the Patriots have had success with veterans in the past, they also have a track record of veterans who come from different organizations who jump on the Patriots bandwagon at the end of the career, not necessarily panning out in the Patriots system. And I could see that happening for Gerald McCoy. If you get used to being the big dog for 8 years in Tampa Bay, which is a losing organization in those 8 years, coming to New England is going to be a completely different thing. You have gotten used to your career being one certain type of way if you're Gerald McCoy, and they will not treat you with any type of specialty in New England. He will be just another player. He will be just another dot. And for some players, they can do that. They can work for him. That's fine. That works. That's great. But for some players, that don't work out well for him. I mean, it didn't work. You saw that happen with Chad Johnson when he tried to have a last run with the New England Patriots. And you also know with the New England Patriots, they're going to pay you exactly what they feel like you are worth and not a cent more. Now, whether that meets his criteria, whether that doesn't, that's up to Gerald McCoy, but ain't going to be no extra bonus pay when it comes to the New England Patriots. But if he's able to get in the system, churn it out, there is no team that meets his needs better than the New England Patriots. As he will be on an instant contender. He will be able to play with one of the greatest quarterbacks and head coaches of all time, and he will likely at least play in an AFC championship, if not a Super Bowl in this year. So it makes sense for Gerald McCoy on one hand, but there is also a huge question mark on whether Gerald McCoy can make the transition to playing in the Patriots system, as many veterans from outside organizations have not been able to. Now, the last and most talked about option, the most linked option, the team that is most thirsty for Gerald McCoy is, of course, my beloved Cleveland Browns. Now, if he joins the Browns, some of the positives. He will be on one of the most talked about teams, good or bad, in the NFL. He will have the spotlight on him, just like everybody on the Rams had the spotlight on them, because the Cleveland Browns are the it team in the NFL as it speaks right now, on paper, in the offseason. And since there are so many names on this team, if anything goes wrong, Gerald McCoy's name is going to be the last name on the list when it comes to the media pointing fingers and pointing out how disappointing they've been. So you kind of get to skate under the radar, but still be in that spotlight. So if he's really good, it'll be noticed. But if he's subpar, hey, you're one of many here in Cleveland, which is crazy to say. Also, team on paper should be a contender, should be a team that can make the playoffs and give you that ride. The negatives when it comes to the Cleveland Browns is that this team is a contender on paper. Now, don't jump at me in the comment section, but hey, it's a gamble for Gerald McCoy if you're looking at this from the outside in. Sure, this looks really great on paper, but this could go bad on paper too. This can go wrong. This is not a proven thing. This is not the New England Patriots that we're talking about here. This team is not a guarantee to do anything yet because they haven't played, but it certainly does look good. Also, this is not the best defensive unit of the three main contenders for his services. I would say they're probably the worst and least proven defensive unit. Not saying that they're a bad defensive unit, but they're not the greatest defensive unit. I think Baltimore is more proven and is a better defensive unit. I think the New England Patriots have a better defensive unit and is more proven than what the Browns have right now. So you also add that. Now, you also add that on top of that, the Browns are going to be asking him to play a reduced role, despite this not being that great of a defense. You could see where some unhappiness could brew. But if he's ready to accept that, if he's okay with those consequences, Cleveland makes a lot of sense for him. And he is the biggest Oklahoma fan in the world. I mean, just look at this clip. I have never seen somebody get that hype for a fight song in my entire life. And anybody who is that big of a Oklahoma fan does not absolutely love Baker Mayfield. Guess what? The Browns got Baker Mayfield, so that could be really cool for Gerald McCoy, and they can both bro out in the weight room and listen to Oklahoma theme song and do the whole Boomer Sooner thing and, have a great time this season. So the Browns make a lot of sense on paper. And that's the Browns' biggest problem when it comes to getting Gerald McCoy, is that of the three, New England, Baltimore, and of course the Browns, they are the least proven. Baltimore has made the playoffs last year. New England, they're New England. The Browns look great on paper, look like they should win a division on paper. It's on paper though, so we don't know. Now, while those three are the main contenders, they all have their reasons for being the team. I mean, Cleveland on paper. Baltimore, they have a lot riding on a really young quarterback whose biggest problem again is passing the ball. New England, they got that system, and it's not the easiest thing for veterans at the end of their career to jump into that late. So they all got their biggest pros and cons. So what team do I think Gerald McCoy is going to sign to? What team do I think has the best chance at getting Gerald McCoy? What team do I think it makes the most sense for Gerald McCoy to sign to? That is why I think Gerald McCoy, and this is a team that I think has 51% to another team's 49%, but ultimately that is why I think Gerald McCoy is unfortunately going to sign with the Baltimore Ravens. I think it makes more sense with him. He has more connections there. It just seems like that's the team that's going to end up getting Gerald McCoy. While the Browns do make a lot of sense, a lot rides on paper, he might not necessarily have the connections. While Todd Monken's here, that was a guy that he knew on the offensive end, not necessarily on the defensive end. And I think Baltimore would be willing to pay him just a little bit extra to edge him out over the Cleveland Browns, especially since the Browns have added so much. I think Baltimore feels a little bit more pressure to get some star power on their team, and Gerald McCoy would make a lot of sense. This could ultimately be a bidding war between two AFC rivals, but I think it's going to come down to some relationships and some cents and dollars, and I think Baltimore is going to end up getting Gerald McCoy. Now, of course, after I upload this video, he's going to end up signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Cincinnati Bengals, because that is how my life tends to go. But that is my opinion. Let me know what your opinion is. What team do you think Gerald McCoy signed to, or what team did Gerald McCoy sign to? Please put that in the comment section down below, because I have no faith that this video is going to age well. But that is it for this week. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. And if you have a $1 or $2 a month to spare, please consider joining the Patreon so you can have your name added to this nice little ticker at the bottom of every single one of my videos. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.